Good morning to all of you. Here we are again on Thursday, April 16th, 2020. We are done with Hume, as you know, last time. Pardon me. Which leaves us with two more texts to finish our semester, to finish our syllabus. As you know, we are ahead because we didn't take the holiday we're supposed to take, and that was counted in the syllabus. So we will be done early. I think so. If you notice on your syllabus, the Republic was to be taught on April 29th. And now we are April 16th. We are basically 2 weeks ahead. So we'll see how long the Republic takes us. What I propose today is to give you an introduction first to Plato. You notice, and then afterwards we'll go into the text. You notice, if you look at your syllabus, that what we dealt with were happiness, freedom, and then being good and living well. We end with Hume. This is the big part. It's ethics. And we move to a smaller part that we included. It's aesthetics. It's because when the program changed, we put ethics and aesthetics in the same course. So it's a smaller part that we do at the end. And in fact, we included Plato and Plotinus because this is not only an aesthetic text, or a text about aesthetics, about the beautiful. It has also a certain ethical side, okay? So we are still within ethics. We will see as we read on Plato's Republic that there is something ethical in what we do and how we judge works of art. And this is why we included Plato. And then we move on to Plotinus for a simple reason, is that Plotinus is the founder of Neoplatonism, of the New Platonism in the 2nd century. So it is a continuation, in other words, of Plato, and you will see that there is a more acceptance of the beautiful in the physical world when we read Plotinus. Okay. So what I suggest, as I told you, is a kind of introduction to Plato, because we haven't really worked at all on Plato this semester. So take this in general so you can understand where he's coming from in everything that he is going to judge, because there is indeed a system in Plato, if you like, if we may use this term at this point. Plato, as you know, was Socrates' student. Okay, so if we trace historically, then 5th century, and then from the 5th century to the 4th century, we have in the 5th Socrates. Then we move on at the beginning of the 4th to more Platonist work, and then after that to Aristotle. In the middle of the century and a bit before of the 4th. So Plato was Socrates' student, and Aristotle was Plato's student, even as he departs from him and critiques him. All right. If we look at Plato's dialogues, you will see that they are divided in some ways into two. There are what we may call, for the purpose of simplicity, the Socratic dialogues. And a lot of them are to be called anatreptic, but we'll leave that aside. So we have the Socratic dialogues, and we have what is purely Platonic dialogues, or the difference is going to be clear to you as I explain. Socrates, then we start with Socrates. Socrates was what we call part of those teachers that were called sophists. Sophists, it's a word that has nothing to do with Sufi. Please do not confuse the two. ما في تصوف. Sophist comes from Sophia, which means knowledge, and later wisdom. This is where you have the word philosophia, philosophy, right? Love of wisdom, love of knowledge. So the sophists were those itinerant teachers, right? They went from one place to the other. They like private teachers today, if you like, and they gave classes, if you want. They gave private classes or classes with several people gathering around them. Now, they were highly present in the democratic part of Greece, so all the Athenian League, and particularly in Athens, the capital of that, and not in the Spartan, the south, not in the Spartan part that was very military and opposed to democracy and followed the strict military law of Lycurgus, whereas Athens followed Solon and his democratic laws. So they were in more democratic cities. Why I say that? Because what people asked from them was to teach them, one of the big things, how to convince others in the democratic assembly. It means the assembly of the demos. Demos in Greek, demos is the people, right? The assembly of the people to vote different things. So this is not the case in Sparta, of course. So in the democratic assembly, you need to give a discourse, you need to have a discourse, you need to give them a speech, you need to be very good at convincing others that what you're saying is true. And of course, this is done through the medium of language. So these sophists were in many ways then professionals of language, how to use language, how to manipulate others through language. So they would go present themselves to different young men or even a bit older who are interested in politics. So there is a strong connection between the sophists and the political arena. Now, politics, remember, or I should tell you, comes from the word polis, P-O-L-I-S in Greek, and polis means city. So when we're talking about politics, it means the affairs of the city. So people who are interested in working in the affairs of the city to a point where they get higher positions and convince others of what they want, were often trained by the sophists. Now, of course, you know that those people have money. So the sophists always preferred such people because they entered politics because they had money and wanted control. So the sophists charged a lot of money for their lessons. So if we take someone from here who's a seller of manouche, they're not going to give him a class. He'll pay them, let's say, 1,000 Lebanese pounds an hour. They say, no, we can't. We have someone paying us $1,000 an hour. So, or 100. In other words, they are driven by money, by pecuniary interests. So what did they do? They said, in fact, language is all you need. Language is the greatest tool. What's important is not to reach the truth. What's important is to convince others that what you say is true. A bit like today you have with solicitors, lawyers in America. So that means that the sophists were not interested in the truth. Not only that, they tried everything they could to say that truth depends on the occasion. Truth depends on what is at the time the question. In other words, truth, we would say today, is relative. And in other words, of course, if you say something is relative, something is true for you but not for me, true today, not tomorrow, it means that there is no truth, right? Because the truth is supposed to be something that is that cannot be other than what it is, right? You cannot say that for me 2 + 2 = 4 and for you 2 + 2 = 5 and that's okay. No, there is a truth that doesn't change. Now, for the sophists, this is not the case. They say no, truth is relative, so there is in fact no truth. There are, as a consequence of that, ethically, if you like, there are no eternal virtues that don't change. We cannot teach people eternal things, eternal virtues, and you cannot try to seek the truth. There is no such thing as the true. Nothing really is what it is. Everything is in change. Nothing is non-transformable. Everything depends on the occasion. So what is true is what you decide is true and convince others that it is true. This is why, again, this is highly political, right? So what's important then as a science is not philosophy for the sophists, it is rhetoric. Rhetoric, which is not yet founded and called such, but until, of course, Aristotle writes a big book on rhetoric. But rhetoric is about the use of language, correct? I mean, in the right way to convince others of what you wish, based on enthymemes and so on. So it's not a search for the truth. Now, from this group, why I tell you this, from this group of sophists then, those itinerant teachers who are seeking money, there emerged one man called Socrates. Socrates was one of those teachers. But the problem for Socrates is that he consciously realized that he needs the truth. He wants the truth. That what he's looking after is not so much money. He's willing to live with very little, but truth. And Socrates, hardly never left Athens. He lived in Athens. He stayed in Athens, lived in a simple way. So what he did, for example, just from the pecuniary side, if somebody had money, he said, okay, you can pay me. Tell me if you are a politician, if your dad has money, okay, then you have to pay. But if somebody is poor, he says, okay, you are what you are. You're selling shoes, you're making shoes, you don't make enough money from that, but that's okay. You don't have to pay me a lot, just pay a little. Or even with Socrates, if you don't have money at all, just don't pay me. You can even learn for free. You notice this is big competition, of course. If you have a person who is giving the same thing as you, but for less money, or even sometimes for free, you might go to him. That's one thing. The second thing is Socrates, again, was seeking the truth. So he didn't think that we should use language to manipulate people. He doesn't think that language should be about convincing others to do what you want them to do. No, he thought that language was something you have to use in dialogue with others in order to reach the truth. So he dedicated all his life to this search. Now, this is clear so far. What is interesting, though, about Socrates is something we can read in his apology. Apology means defense. So when he was defending himself against accusations against him, and he says, the difference between me and my accusers, who are sophists, right, is that my accusers think they know, but in fact they don't know. And me, I'm the same, I don't know either. So they don't know anything, I don't know anything, except one thing. I know one thing more than they do. What is it? I know that I do not know. Okay, this is of course very famous. At least I know one thing, is that I don't know. Of course, this is important from the beginning of philosophy. We are in 398, I believe, that admitting ignorance is the beginning of thinking. If you don't admit that you're ignorant, you can never learn. And this is, of course, a big statement of Socrates. Now, to talk again about Socrates. Why was he accused of this? Why was he then killed, condemned to death, if you like, rather, not killed, but sentenced to death? And he drank the hemlock and decided to accept to drink the hemlock and to die, and so not to escape from prison as his disciples suggested. Why all this? Why was he condemned? Let's go back to the thing, what I told you. I said Socrates is searching for the truth, so he's in opposition to those people who are not searching for the truth, whose interest is merely money, making money. Now, but Socrates didn't stop at that, because he had virtue, if you like. He had ethical considerations. Socrates said, I cannot just let these people continue on like this, lying, saying to everyone that they know everything when in fact they don't know nothing, saying to everyone they can teach them everything when their knowledge is very basic or almost non-existent. So I cannot just be satisfied with this from a distance. I should go and meet them. So here's what Socrates did. Every time that there was a famous, one of those famous sophists giving teaching somewhere at somebody's house, let's suppose a politician or other, he would go. He would go, sit with the others and say, hello, how are you, etc. I can take an example, Hippias, for example. You have two dialogues dedicated to this. He sits and talks to Hippias. He said, hello, Hippias, how are you? I heard that you are very intelligent, that you knew everything about everything, so your knowledge is so immense that I came to you for a question. And the question would be something like, in this case, virtue. So what is virtue? Okay. So you have to imagine that Socrates is there with other students who are paying a lot of money to this Hippias, and he starts to ask his questions. Now, Hippias is going to answer him about virtue, and in the end, he will every time make a mistake. So every time he defines virtue, Socrates shows to him that this definition is not correct. I give you another example to help you even more. Socrates went to see another one of those sophists called Ion, I-O-N. By the way, most of the dialogues of Plato's have strange names for you. Most of them have the names of the people that Socrates is talking to. That's just, those are Greek names. So Ion is one of those dialogues, and he's a sophist, and he knows a lot literature. He knows Homer, of course, knowing at the time, having great knowledge is knowing Homer, knowing later it will be, of course, also at the same time there's Hesiod, there's others. And Socrates, as usual, goes, sits with the others, and Ion is teaching about about beautiful things. So, as usual, Socrates presents himself obsequiously. It means overly modestly, right? Obsequious. It's a very negative term. He says things like, oh, Ion, you are such a wonderful man. Everybody tells me how great. I am such an idiot. I am ignorant. I know nothing. This is really how Socrates proceeds. And sometimes you smile or you laugh. You see the irony in everything he's saying. So he sits, and of course, you are touching him in his ego, in Hippias' ego, or in this case in Ion's ego, right? So he flatters him, if you like. Ion is flattered. Bit of water. So since he's flattered, he thinks he's great. Socrates asks him, well, I really need to know, I tried and I can't figure out what is the beautiful, what's beautiful? The term beautiful, he uses beautiful, since this is the topic of conversation. And Ion's going to say, what's beautiful is a woman, is a great woman, and especially when young. And so Socrates says, yes, but, there are the statues of Phidias. Phidias is the great Greek sculptor. He says, yes, it's sculptures also, but I guess what makes everything beautiful is also the fact, not only that they are, so this is Ion, let's suppose, speaking, that they are statues made by great any great sculptor, Phidias, for example. But the fact that they are covered in gold, gold gives the beauty. And so if you want anything beautiful, it's when there's gold on it. And so again, this is literal from there. Socrates says, well, what if I take an old pot, tanjra, my old pot from my own house, and I cover it with gold, I paint it in gold. Does that make it beautiful? So Ion says, no, then it doesn't. So what you notice is that, and this is the Socratic dialogue. I told you there's a separation between Socratic and Platonic. You will see here why. You notice that Socrates keeps asking his questions in order to do what at the end? In order to prove at the end to everyone present, please learn this, in order to prove at the end to everyone present, to the students, if you like learning, that that person, in this case Ion, thinks that he knows, but in fact he doesn't know. Okay? So all those teachers that you are hiring and giving lots of drachmas to, lots of money to, don't know anything. They pretend that they know, but in fact, once you really ask them the right questions, you will discover that they know nothing. But at least, of course, I know one thing more than they know, which is that I don't know. In other words, I admit my ignorance and I'm willing to learn. Whereas they never admit their ignorance, you have to force it out of them, and so they never learn. They remain in their ignorance. So those are the Socratic dialogues. Two things then. First, I have to tell you the difference between Socratic dialogues and Platonic dialogues, and second, why Socrates was sentenced to death. Let's start, in fact, with the second and then move on to the first. Socrates was sentenced to death because you can imagine the situation. Here's this bloke going from one place to another. Every time that one of those teachers, who know each other, a lot of them, is teaching, he comes and shows everybody that they're idiots. Imagine today, you can take the same situation. Imagine today on television, somebody who, I don't know, with Marcel Ghanem, for example. He invites someone, and every time there's another person there, or he invites, let's suppose, 3, 4, 5 people, and one of those people there is always questioning whoever is present in such a way that he shows that this politician is lying all the time, or that he's wrong all the time. And he does it not only once a week, he does it several times a week, or he does it every time there is this show. He just comes, بيتدخل بيتحش حاله, we would say, and he starts asking these questions and proving them all liars and wrong. Let's suppose that. So in this case, of course, everyone will hate him and they will want to do what? To get rid of him. And the sophists said, we can't make money anymore if this guy is around. We have to get rid of him. So they managed to invent accusations against Socrates. They said he's inventing new gods, and imagine the great accusation. Socrates is corrupting the youth. Our children, he's corrupting them. Of course, all kinds of things to just get rid of him and have him sentenced to death. You can understand how this happened. Today they would just kill him more immediately and secretly and get rid of him. So they got rid of Socrates. They got rid of what Plato will call the voice of conscience, if you like. It's the conscience of Athens. It's the man who was telling the Athenians the truth. Okay. So this is the first thing then, or the second point, if you like, that I wanted to mention. The first one is what happens with the Socratic dialogues. Well, they remain. Plato was a disciple of Socrates, so he wrote them down as best as he could. So Socrates, always remember, never wrote anything. So Plato wrote them down, these Socratic dialogues, and they always end, as you heard me say, with proving that the person thinks he knows, but he doesn't know, but without giving us an answer. In other words, with Ion, for example, Ion was saying, the beautiful is this, the beautiful is that, and every time Socrates asks them questions to show that no, 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 no. But in the end, Socrates doesn't tell you what is the beautiful. So, if you like, the Socratic dialogues are always open-ended. There is no answer. Now, Plato, after the death of Socrates, develops his own thinking, what we call then Platonism. He develops his own thinking, and in fact, he doesn't think there is no answer, he thinks there is an answer. Okay? So the Platonic dialogues give us an answer. They tell us what is the beautiful, they tell us what is virtue. What we are going to read, to get to our reading, is from the Republic. The Republic is a book about justice. It's a book about justice and about virtues. What virtues do we need in a republic? Okay, there are 4, we will see when we talk about the republic itself. 4 virtues, the 4th one being justice. That we will see how that works. So there is an answer then in Plato, thanks to his own thought, thanks to his own system. Okay, what is that answer? What I gave you from the Aeon is an actual dialogue, and what I said is practically what the dialogue says in different ways. But what I will say now is not in the dialogue, but it's just to help you. We can use the same dialogue to see how Plato thinks. Okay? Let's go back to the beautiful. Aeon is going to say, you can write with me if you want on a piece of paper. A girl is beautiful. Okay? Statues of Phidias are, or is a statue of Phidias, if you like, is beautiful. Gold is beautiful. Write a few more if you like, if you have other versions. Ferrari is beautiful, if you like. Now, if I'm Plato, what I notice in this is that on the left you have girl, statue, gold, etc. You have something that is changing, it's different every time. In the middle, we just have a determination is. It's what we call a copula in logic. Let's leave it aside. Is. And on the right, we have a constant. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. It doesn't change. Every time I am judging, of course. I am saying, the girl is beautiful. This is a judgment. I'm saying, gold is beautiful. I'm saying, statue of Phidias is beautiful. Okay. So in these judgments, which are true, everyone agrees that statue of Phidias is beautiful, girl is beautiful, etc. So there is truth in it. Now, what in these statements doesn't change, so that is always the case, and what changes? That is not always the case. Well, you don't always have a girl, you don't always have gold, you don't always have statue, right? So on the left, we have change. This is what I see. Change. On the right, we have something that doesn't change. Always beautiful, beautiful, constant. It's also what I see now. However, we realize that what we are seeing here is seen differently. What I'm seeing on the left are things that are different every time. So I'm in the world of change. I do see with my physical eye a girl, with my physical eye gold, with my physical eye statue. Okay? Now I see also beautiful through that statue, but it's not the girl itself that is the beautiful. Okay? So I also see the beautiful that doesn't change, and this is through my judgment. So it's what we may call through the eye of the mind. It's what Plato would call the eye of the mind. So we have 2 ways of seeing. Through my reason, the judgments I do in my reason, in nous in Greek, N-O-U-S. I see with nous the beautiful that never changes, and I see with my physical eye the things that change. So, keep that in mind. Now, we know that the opposite in Greek of what doesn't change is what changes. Okay? We know then that what is the opposite of being? Being is change, right? Either something is or it is not. It's changing, right? So, what is seen through the eye of the mind, and what changes, what is not, is seen through the eye of the body. So the eye of the mind gives you what is. Okay? So, the eye of the mind gives you the things that don't change, the things that are. It gives you the truth. Okay? What are these things that don't change? Plato is going to revolutionize the history of the world. And this is not a joke. Because Plato is going to say, you see an image that doesn't change, the image that doesn't change, with the eye of the mind. What is the word for image? Idea. Okay, idea in Greek. Or eidos, if we want, especially in Aristotle. So let's keep idea. So Plato says the things that don't change, the things that we see this image, the surah in Arabic, idea الصورة, the surah التي لا تتغير وهي الحق, right? What I see is the idea, which means surah, that doesn't change with the eye of the mind. So this is, of course, what doesn't change this is the truth. So the idea is the non-change, is being, is the truth. Where is it? It's not seen with the physical eye, so it's in the world of ideas, not in the physical world. So the truth is not in this world, it's in the world of ideas that is non-physical. And this is the introduction of the concept of idea into the history of the world by Plato. And the world has completely changed because of this. Okay? Of course, the word changes meaning through time. The idea for Plato here, in order for you not to make mistakes, it's not something in your head. You don't have an idea in your head. This starts a little bit with Aristotle, and then especially in the 16th and 17th century. You start to have ideas in your head. The big debate on the origin of ideas is in the 17th century. So you can imagine when we start to say, I have many ideas in my head, this is a very modern way of speaking. For Plato, no, there is only one idea for each thing, one model for each thing, one being for each thing. So in this world, I see millions of tables, but the truth, the one table that doesn't change, is what he calls the idea. So if I say that there is an idea in your head, in his head, the same idea, that means we have millions of ideas of chair. No, Plato says there is only one. So what we do every time we think about it, we participate. We see with the eye of the mind the one idea. So ideas are one, unique. They are not multiple, each one. They are being, they are the truth. And so they are the world of truth, that is the world of ideas. And so Plato, and this is going to affect the Republic that we're reading, divides, if you like, existence into three levels. There is first reality, what is real. Okay? Reality, again, synonyms, all these things. Write them down. Idea equals one. It is one always. Idea is being. Equal. Put equal, one, equal, being, equal. So idea is one, maybe in brackets, then equals being, equals truth, equals existence, equals reality. Okay? Always memorize this so you don't confuse them. So the world of reality is the world of ideas. It's exactly the opposite of what you might think. Because of course for Plato, the world we live in is a world of change. So we have reality, it's the world of ideas. We have a copy of this reality, so imperfect, but it's still a copy of it. This is the world we live in. So we have copy of the idea, so the world we live in has many chairs, many tables that are copies of the idea of chair, idea of table, the real model that is non-physical. Okay? So I repeat, we have three levels. The first one is the world of ideas, which is the world of reality. The second one is the world of copies, our world. And within that, there's a third one, the world of simulacra. You can write it in the singular, simulacrum, simulacrum, and then in the plural, the same, but with A instead of UM. simulacra, simulacrum, simulacra. It means copies of copies. When I make a copy of something, let's suppose there is a chair here, which is already a copy of the idea of chair, and I sit with a paper, I draw a chair that is like the chair in front of me. This is a weaker copy even. It's what we may call, if you like, the simulacra are illusions. Okay, it's an illusion. So if I'm a very good painter, I can make, you can start to see here what Plato is going to say about painting. I can make a good painting of a chair, an illusion of a chair. Okay, so we have these three levels of existence. The first level is reality, it's the world of ideas. The second is the world that participates to this reality, which is our world of copies. And then we have the simulacra, the copies of those copies, or world of illusion. And from that we move to now the Republic, which I will introduce to you next time. So I will tell you to be patient till next Tuesday, where we'll where I'll give an introduction to the Republic, and then we'll start reading our text. Meanwhile, you have a homework, and here it is. I want you to tell me, should morals be rationally based or empirically based? Okay, I repeat, should morals be rationally based or empirically based? This is due next Tuesday. Should morals be rationally based or empirically based? You may use for that as you wish, Kant and also Hume. Anything you wish to use, even Hobbes can be used, Sartre can be used, anything can be used, perhaps less Sartre. But mostly I think you can answer this from Hume and Kant. Okay, from Hume and Kant. So should morals be rationally based or empirically based? Okay. See you next Tuesday, or speak to you next Tuesday.